Hey, friends. Welcome to the Divorce Clarity Studio on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, Podcasts, and TV. I'm your host, Lisa Lisser, CEO and founder of the boutique coaching firm LZL Coaching. If you're navigating divorce and feeling overwhelmed, confused, or painfully alone, you're in the right place. On this show, I bring you clear information, grounded education, and soul-centered guidance to help you understand the divorce process from start to finish without shame, fear, or overwhelm. Each episode, I sit down with trusted experts across the divorce landscape: legal, financial, emotional, relational. We demystify what's happening, answer the questions you're afraid to ask, and help you make decisions from clarity rather than crisis. Divorce Clarity Studio is here to help you feel less alone, more informed, and more grounded, so you can move through divorce with intention and emerge stronger on the other side. Today, I'm excited to speak with Dr. Elana Hoffman. Our topic is dating and divorce. Dr. Elana Hoffman is a clinical psychologist and relationship coach with a Washington, D.C. based telehealth practice. She specializes in helping people navigate relationships at every stage, from dating and marriage to healing and rebuilding after divorce, with a focus on creating secure, authentic, and deeply connected partnerships. She's the host of the podcast Talk Relationship to Me, where she explores modern relationships through both her professional expertise and lived experience with divorce, dating, and co-parenting. She's also the author of So, Your Wife Left You? Now What? A practical and compassionate guide for men navigating divorce and moving forward with intention. Dr. Hoffman believes deeply in the power of love and connection, blending self-discovery with self-acceptance and ultimately self-love. This is the foundation for all healthy relationships. And with that, Dr. Elana Hoffman, welcome to the Divorce Clarity Studio.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So you and I connected as like-minded professionals navigating the ins and outs of divorce with our clients. And what I felt instantly with you is that we're on the same wavelength. And I'd love you to share your story. How did you land in the divorce support business?
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that intro. I am a DC-based therapist, like you mentioned. I
Mhm.
think that the divorce space is one that is so tricky to navigate. People feel very alone in it, and there's so much to talk about and so much help that is needed, but people don't want to seek it for a lot of reasons. And so when I went through my own divorce 6 years ago now, I could have really used, more of a space to understand what was happening and to move forward and to just talk about what I was kind of going through. I am also a child of divorce, and so I have kind of grown up, thinking about relationships just broadly in general, and more recently, divorce in particular. And I just think it's a really, important time, a pivotal time, and so much can come out of it, and there's so much to learn and grow from this period in people's lives. And I think it's continues to be really stigmatized. So I like to talk more about it to lessen the stigma, because it happens, obviously. And so, we need to be there to support people that are going through it and try to destigmatize it.
No, I love that. I mean, the fact that you say it's still a stigma is so true. And part of what I've tried and what I know you're trying to bring to the fore is that divorce is another life phase.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been around for as long as there have been relationships.
Yep.
But we feel like it's a shanda, to use a Jewish term, right?
Totally.
We feel like it's something that we don't want to talk about. We don't want to acknowledge it's happening when it is happening. And,
Mhm.
it's kind of like saying, I don't want to acknowledge that peanut allergies exist.
Right, exactly.
They exist. And
But they
so
exist.
right? We have to deal with them and we have to make them feel like they're part of life.
Yeah.
And that's my goal. And I know that's what you really strive for in your practice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and the stigma around divorce, it keeps people in really unhappy, unhealthy situations. So part of my goal in talking more about it and lessening the stigma is so that people, don't stay in bad situations for fear of it, and you see it everywhere. I mean, even people, they're not sort of loud and proud about being divorced. People at parties sort of whisper like, I'm divorced, and I, and it just speaks to, the continued unfortunate stigma. But you're right, with the, peanut allergies exist, divorce exists. So let's talk about it. So I love, the podcast about it. I love coming to talk about it. And yeah.
Yeah. It's so vital for us to get started. And the topic we decided to take the bull by the horns is dating and divorce. And
Mhm.
I think we might have titled this Dating After Divorce, but I want us to reframe it in the idea that what about dating during divorce when you're still technically married, but you're trying to pursue your new separate life?
Yeah.
So, what I started thinking about is what are the kinds of questions that my clients ask? So, I often hear, like, when am I allowed to start dating? Or
Right.
can I date when we're separated, or do I have to wait until the divorce is final? Um, how or when should I let my kids know that I'm dating?
Yeah.
Or will I ever feel happy again? And then I have some clients who are like, I am not interested in dating. Is that even normal?
Mhm.
So, have at it. Help
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah, totally, all the things. I mean, so many important questions, complicated situations, confusing, what's sort of like right or isn't right. This question of like, am I allowed to,
Mhm.
is something that I talk to my clients about all the time. Also, all these questions that come up, and I think, it's just it's so complicated. And I think like the sort of the catch 22 of dating after divorce or during divorce, like you said, is tough because on the one hand, people kind of want to, I don't know that they necessarily want, sometimes people want to repartner and date quickly. And, I have some thoughts about that, but I think that some people just want to sort of figure themselves out, during divorce. They're kind of like, maybe I want to try this. I don't know. I don't know what kind of person I would be into. I just got out of this long marriage, or I'm in the process of getting out of this marriage, and I don't really know what I want. And I don't really know what I'm looking for. And so I think that you can't really find out until you do it. And then doing it is confusing and complicated, right? So it's really this sort of catch 22 of like, you want to figure out what you want, but you really can't until you do it. And so it's just this like complicated time, and lots of questions and lots of things come up during it. So I
Right.
think it's such a great topic to discuss. I love talking about it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things that, I see in my clients is that they're coming out of 18, 20, 25-year marriages.
Yeah.
They haven't dated since they were kids. And it
Right.
was a different world when they last dated to the dating scene right now.
Totally.
So, what do you say to help these, people sort of re-enter or even just reconsider what dating is about?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I tell my clients or talk to my clients about is like all that being okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of insecurities, lack of confidence around themselves, around dating, around sex, around all of these things. And I think that people think they should be in a different place than they are, right? Like, how come I don't know how to talk to people? How come I don't know what to do on a first date? How come I don't know what to wear, where to go, what to say, And the first thing I think is really like normalizing and validating that that's okay. How could you know, right? You haven't dated in forever, if ever. I mean, there's lots of clients who, they met their spouses or soon to be ex spouses in college or even younger, and they just A, it's a different world, or B, they just didn't date, they really didn't date. And so how are you supposed to know? And so, part of my work with my clients is just removing that sort of shame around like the unknown. It's like you didn't know
Mhm.
how to any skill you have, anything you do, there was a time when you didn't know how to do it, right? And so dating is the same. You can learn, and you can practice, and you can, you know, take the information as you're doing it and learn as you go, the same way you learn how to play baseball or whatever,
Right.
as you do it, I
Right.
mean,
And
things
so
are go ahead, sorry.
no, no, no. So like when you mention like baseball or practice, like it's about practice.
Yeah.
And so sometimes jumping in is okay because you're not going to get it right necessarily the first time. So don't anticipate that that first person you connect with is the one. I think a lot of people go there because they're so thrilled to feel seen again
Yes. Yeah.
that they connect right away with that first person.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the right person,
Yeah.
but many times it's not. And
Yeah.
I won't even call it the rebound person, even though that's language that's used. I think of it more as, you are just exploring what dating's about.
Yeah.
And that's who that first person is.
Yeah. I talk a lot about new relationship energy, or NRE. And I think that's a particularly prominent thing among people who are separating or divorced, when they do meet someone and feel like somebody sees me, someone understands, I can connect on this level, I'm attracted to them, they're attracted to me. It's a drug. I mean, it's essentially a
Yeah.
drug. You're flooded with dopamine and oxytocin and all of these things. And it can be like a really beautiful thing, but there are, of course, other factors to consider with all of this. So, but it is, kind of, all those things are understandable. If you haven't felt that way in a long time, then of course, you're going to be really drawn to that feeling,
Yeah.
and so it's important to just kind of know that, just to know that.
Right. And for some people, like they may have felt like they never had that feeling, or it's been so long since they had that feeling that they're really attracted to this experience, maybe even more than the person,
Yes.
right? They think that the person is the person, but
Right.
you're feeling things that you've never felt in a long time.
Yes.
So
Definitely.
that can be so appealing and so
Mhm.
connecting.
Yes.
Um, so what would be a warning sign when you're first there and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is it." Um, what might be a warning sign, or how do you wage those waters a little delicately?
Well, I think that it also depends on where you are in your divorce process. But if we're talking about kind of, you're in the process, you're separated, you're not divorced, you're sort of trying to figure out that, and then, you meet someone and you feel this feeling that you haven't felt in a long time. Like, what are some things to be aware of? I think some things to be aware of are the context of the relationship and what else and all the other things you have going on in your life, because as you know, and as I know and my clients know, divorce is a complicated process where you have a ton of logistics to figure out, right? The living, finances, kids, custody, I mean, all these things, right? And all these things take up a lot of time and energy and mental resources and, physical resources. And so it's trying to figure out like how much actual time and energy you have to devote to a new relationship, which takes a lot of, you know putting into it, right? As a lot of clients of mine have learned, when people get divorced, it's, we talk a lot about, what kind of partner you were, and, how you were or were not putting an effort towards the relationship, right? Not the kids or the family or the in-laws or all these other things, but the marriage, the actual relationship. And, I always encourage my clients to, look at themselves and their own behavior. And if you're trying to sort of learn, like, okay, these are things that I didn't give to my partner, and in my next relationship, I want to be a present, engaged partner, which is what is required to have a successful, healthy relationship. When you're going through divorce, it's very difficult to be able to give that time and energy to a new partnership while you are dealing with all this other really heavy stuff.
Right.
So, I think that is something very important to keep in mind, just during all of this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that sounds like, so for me, what I heard was, um, getting into like a serious relationship right away may not be the exact right move at the right time. It might be okay to sort of like try to have a little more of a casual experience.
Yeah.
Just start having fun, doing, social activities with other people. You don't have to be finding the one first.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
you are juggling all of these really big issues, that you're not going to be able to focus on everything 100%. And if, as you rightly mentioned, during life, we take the focus that we once had for our partner, and it often gets moved on to our children, or moved on to our aging parents,
Yep.
or moved on to our career.
Yep.
And so it's hard to balance.
Yeah.
So what you're sharing is that finding a balance is still important, even when you're so excited in the thrill of this moment.
Yes, definitely. Yes, for sure. And this is also, it brings up this idea of kind of understanding what you're really looking for, when you're dating during separation or the early stages of divorce. And it's okay not to know, right? It's okay to kind of come from a place of, I really want to connect. I want to meet new people. I want to go on fun dates. I want something fun and casual and, low pressure, right? But I think it's totally okay to want that. But I think people don't really understand that, maybe they don't really understand that like that might be the thing that they're looking for. And then it's even harder to sort of communicate it to the person, right? So where the baseball analogy falls short is like, there are not a lot of hurt feeling. Well, that's not true. There are definitely hurt feelings in baseball, I'm sure. But it's like, it involves a lot of other people when you're dating. And so it's sort of a risky business not to come into it with self-awareness of where you're at and what you're looking for and what you can give and what someone else might be looking for, So when I talk to my clients about this, I really talk to them about what it is that they are looking for. What can they realistically give? What do they want to give? Where their heart really is at in terms of meeting someone else and
Right.
all that.
And what I'm really hearing is, the affirmative things, right? So often I hear my clients saying, well, I don't want the narcissist, and I don't want someone who's not paying attention. I don't want someone who likes that political party, or I don't like, all of the negatives come out first.
Yeah.
And they know what they don't want,
Yes.
but they're not so clear on what they do want.
Yeah, totally. And that is really important, right? I mean, it's really important to know what you don't want. But yes, it also takes, experience to figure out what it is that you do want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's like, that's like a framework. Like, how do you sort of set yourself up to be open to date? And like, sometimes you might think you're open to date, but you might not actually be open. And
Yeah.
so, how do you support clients who sort of are in that stuck zone of like, this is something I want, but I'm maybe hijacking my own success in getting it?
Yeah, I think it's important to really, understand what is going into kind of that stuckness, right? If it's, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of, I don't know what I'm doing. Are people going to like me? Are people going to be interested? Am I an interesting person? Are people going to want to date someone with kids? All these sorts of anxieties and insecurities. And I think that is something that we can certainly work on in therapy, this anxiety around all this, where this comes from. And of course, lots of this also comes from, just are you an anxious person? Did you have anxiety growing up? What is your model of relationships? I mean, all of this plays in, all these family of origin discussions, of course, are very important in therapy and plays into all of this, right? But like, what did you learn about relationships and love and sex and all of these things? And so, what are you coming in with? And so if there's anxieties around that, that's something that is, something that we work on. Or if it's really, my heart is not really in this right now. I feel like I should date, but I don't know that I really want to. And I have a lot going on. And, that's not really where my mind is. Then that's kind of a different thing. And I always encourage people to be really true to themselves and to pursue the things that feel really authentic to them. And you don't have to date. You don't have to do anything. There's no have to's, so just to really honor where people are in this process, to take care of themselves.
Yeah, that is a great observation. And we're going to pick up on that and a few more things after this break. So now it's time for 30 seconds. Go get a glass of water, get a cup of coffee, and we'll be back with Dr. Elana Hoffman. And we're back with Dr. Elana Hoffman talking about dating and divorce. So when we left off, we were talking about how can we date and really be authentic to ourselves, right? The question is dating a requirement? Is dating a choice? Are there rules about dating? I know, like back in the old days, there was a book called The Rules that two women put out about how to, get a catch.
Yep.
I don't know if that's real or not real for today. I don't even know if it was real or not real for that moment in time. But, things are different. We were talking about how do you set yourself up to be a successful dater or feel confident in the dating process. But what about the dating process, right? Like, where do people meet? And is it really all online?
Yeah.
So what can you share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what I was saying before is I always encourage people and talk with people about how they want to spend their time during this process, right? Like what is actually really meaningful to you, what is in line with your values, and to do those things. So, whether that's, being really present with your kids or connecting with your friends or exploring your city or wanting to meet new people, like really wanting to date, right? But I always encourage people to do the things that are to really try to figure out the things that are calling to them and do those things. And if as a result of that connections come, whether that's honestly even friendships, new friendships, I mean, divorce is a whole new phase, like we were saying before, so lots can come from divorce. And so, focusing on bringing people into your life that are supportive of you and connect with you, regardless of whether it's romantic or not, I think is so important. But in terms of, so I think that, this of course applies to dating, because if you're doing things that are really truly authentic to you in line with your values, then you sort of bring in those people that share that. And of course, that's an important thing in dating and finding a partner. So, there are many ways to do that. And of course, one of them is online dating. And I can talk, there's lots to say about online dating. And if people really want to be serious about dating and finding partners intentionally or casually, of course, the internet is, can do that. Definitely.
Okay, so I'm gonna roll us back just a little bit because
Yes.
you said so much in that statement. How do we discover what is authentically dating, right? Like, how do we discover that thing that makes us feel confident about ourselves? That means we're dating for the right reasons, not because we're lonely and we just need companionship. And I don't even want to diminish that, because it's not that we just need companionship is important.
Totally.
And so how do we sort of begin to identify who are we when we're being authentic to ourselves?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I really talk about this a lot with my clients. And I think honestly, it starts even small, right? It's one of the things I think people don't anticipate about this period of time, separation and divorce, is how much control you actually have over your time and your experience and what you make of it. And it's, so much it's like this thing that happens to you, right? And it can be this sort of passive thing, but there's so much power and control in how you approach being divorced and how you spend your time, especially if you share custody. If you have kids and you share custody and half the time you don't have your kids, this is like a whole world of opportunity that you have to do whatever you want to do with that time. And so I encourage people to even just start small, of like, what's something that you've wanted to do that you haven't done, that you have wanted to do that you haven't done for your ex or your kids or someone else in your life. And it could be like ordering a special meal for takeout. It could be trying a new dance class. It could be going for a walk in the woods. Like, it could be listening to music that your ex didn't like. Those types of things that are really authentic to you are when you sort of start to understand yourself and rebuild basically during this time. And it really does not have to be this like huge thing. It can be moment to moment, what feels good right now, what feels in line with what I want to do right now, you
So
know?
that's great, because that really helps women and men put it in perspective,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't need to jump wholesale into a new relationship. Let's figure out what I like and who I am first.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes to do that pause and to take stock, but
Yeah.
it can really refocus what your goals are, what your values are.
Yeah.
With my clients, I always start with a values clarification where we're like, what's really important to you?
Yeah.
Because sometimes in a marriage, you lose sight of yourself and you adopt your spouse's friends and habits and routines, and that can work for a while.
Yeah.
But when things start falling apart, then you've lost a sense of self.
Yeah.
So what are those things? Like, maybe I always wanted to learn to play guitar, but maybe that's not the first thing I need to try. That's a big
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe the
Yeah.
first thing is, like, I'm gonna go back to that yoga class I used to like,
Yeah.
and just do it once a week.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, and I think, parenting too is a big part of this and a big part of the confidence, because I think that, I mean, of course it depends on like the age of your kids, but no matter what, you're a parent. So no matter how old your kids are during this process, you have a lot of agency over how you parent during this time and how you spend your time with your kids. And this is also an area that can really build a lot of confidence, because you can basically do what you want. I mean, again, either way, you can take your kids, you can do lots of things with your kids that maybe you didn't do before, right? And you can sort of parent the way that you want to parent. So I think this confidence thing is so important, and it comes with just sort of doing it, like, just not having a choice of like, well, I have to parent now. And so you do the thing and you make decisions, and then you become confident in those decisions because you've done the thing. Like, the confidence doesn't have to come first. Sometimes the behavior and the action precedes it, makes you more confident. And that's true with dating too. I mean, if you feel like you want to date and you want to meet people, sometimes you just do it and you figure, and you reflect hopefully along the way. I mean, obviously I do a lot of reflection with my clients, and they say, well, I like spending time with this person, but I'm not really sure. Or, wow, this relationship stuff takes a lot of work. I'm not sure I'm really ready for this, right? Like, it's through the process of it that you really,
Yeah.
that there's some self-discovery. So,
Yeah, so it's
yeah.
really interesting because, um, I'm a Jewish educator in addition to being a divorce coach, and so I follow the weekly Torah portion, which is the Jewish, Bible cycle, the reading cycle, and last week we had a portion where the people all said they gathered together, they received the law, and they said, "We will do and we will understand." And so many people question that. What does it mean that you're going to do it before you understand it, or you're going to do it before you hear it? But it really is great wisdom, because sometimes we have to take the steps, we have to begin the actions
Yeah.
in order to understand the power of the actions.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're saying here with the dating and divorce is that you have to try it so that you understand what you want, what you're looking for, what you're looking for at this moment, because it might be different than 6 months from now.
Definitely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it totally, it can really change, over time. Of course, like everything changes over time. People learn and grow and go through different life milestones, and so everything's changing. Everything's always changing, and that's okay, right? We sort of kind of get stuck in, well, you wanted this originally, and now you want, it's like, well, things change and people
Yeah.
change, and what you want of course, will change over time.
So we have about 5-6 minutes left, and I want to talk about issues with the kids in dating
Hmm.
because I think a lot of people get tied up in knots over that.
Yeah.
And what do you see as some of people's biggest challenges of dating? And how to explain it to the kids, or you know, all of it, all the things that come into that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with kids, there are lots of considerations, and I think, and it's totally different. Divorce with kids and without kids is a completely different thing, because you always have to think about your kids and what is affecting them and how you're talking to them about it, right? So, I mean, some people have in their divorce agreements that they won't introduce their kids to new partners until X amount of time, or they'll introduce their exes before the kids, or so if that is something to think about, then some people put those in their agreements. So I would say follow that, right? But of course, again, things change. I would discourage multiple partners coming in and out of your kids' lives. I think this is divorce is of course a time where kids need predictability
Stability.
and stability and security, and it also is really it's dating is complicated, right? As of course it's complicated. Relationships are complicated. Sex is very complicated. And when you as a parent are thinking about all of this and navigating all of this, it just does take away from your ability to be a present parent and to really think about things in like a what is best for my kids kind of way. And this is always the thread to come back to, like what's best for the kids. It's hard because I mean, it's hard to figure that out, right? That's a subjective thing. But I mean, most professionals would tell you that, until something might be really serious, don't introduce, because again, kids, are already going through a lot. And it doesn't, I mean, a 5-year-old is obviously different than a 17-year-old, but not that much, not in terms of attachment, or, I mean, you could really connect with someone and then they're gone. And that's okay, because that's life and that happens anyway. A best friend moves away, or, all kinds of things happen, but those happen anyway. So, to try to limit that to the degree that you can is generally the way to go.
Right. If
Yeah.
we're going to call it like the best practice, like
Right.
sometimes you will have to introduce a date to one of your children. Like, let's say the child was supposed to leave to go on their evening activities and the date came and picked you up from the house. Now you're in the same space.
Right.
You're going to have to introduce them.
Right.
But that's not the same as introducing, this is my new life partner. It's a
Right.
very different thing.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so don't feel like you're completely messing up your child if, a situation arises and you have to be honest and say, yeah, we're going out to the movies. Like,
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yeah, it's good to know. It's good for your kids to know that you have a life. I mean, this is true in lots of, when they're not with you, you can do things and date. It's good for you to talk about what you do on your time without them, so that they know that you have a
yeah,
life, right? Of course, in an age appropriate way. But yes, best practice is, a date on your kid free time. Don't take a lot of
yeah,
time away from your kids to date. Like especially if it's 50% of your life is a lot of time. You have a lot
yeah,
of time to date and to do things, so really try to limit it. Even if you're like, oh, my kids are older and they're doing something else anyway. I'm not, we're not going to be hanging out. Still, there's still a vibe of availability that you
yeah,
want to be for them. And, you want them to feel like they are the priority and you're there for
right.
them.
Yeah, 100%.
You know.
All right. So we're getting really close to the end. we have learned so much, Alana. Thank you. I so
Yeah.
appreciate this conversation. And there are topics we didn't get to,
So
which
many.
is sex and dating after divorce, which is a big one. And maybe we just have a whole separate
For
session,
sure.
show just on that. But
Yes.
for now, what would you want my audience to take away from today's talk?
I think the takeaway is, really try to understand where you are at and what you are looking for, and there is help with that if it's hard, if it's hard to navigate on your own, but to really, just sort of introspect and be mindful and just pay attention to everything that you have going on in your life and what you really want to bring in. And if that is, dating and companionship and, love and sex and all that stuff, that's great. And if it's, not that, that's also great. And there's no sort of shoulds with any of this. It's like you
Right.
are where you are and, everything in time. And, it's, you have to sort of like protect your, space and energy in order to be able to get through this time, which is a very difficult time, but there are lots of exciting things too. People have a great time dating, and meeting new people and learning new things. And, a lot of people really have fun with it and it can be a really
Yeah.
amazing, wonderful thing. So if you want to do it, you should do it. Go for it.
Great.
Yeah.
It's such a positive and uplifting way for us to walk out of this session, and knowing that we're going to have more conversations on dating and divorce is really powerful. So, Alana, tell us how my audience can get in touch with you. And also, you have a podcast that just launched. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you so much. I just launched my own podcast called Talk Relationship to Me. It is about all things relationships. So I talk about some divorce things, but I talk about, what I see, in marriages that contribute to divorce as a couples therapist. I talk about, love languages. I talk about attachment. I talk about a lot of psychological, themes that I see. Occasionally I break down the reality TV episode that is relevant to relationships. I'm a big I'm a big proponent of
Great.
that. Learning from that. And you can reach me on my website at drelanahoffman.com, and you can find me on Instagram at dr.elanahoffman.com, where I post reels about relationships and dating and all kinds of things. And if you need help yourself, therapy or coaching, I am available. And so you can get in touch with me through my website or my email that's listed right here. And I love talking about all this. So, like you said, we could talk a lot longer about all of this topic. So thank you so much for having me. This is so great.
Yeah, no, I so appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom, and from a therapeutic lens. I share things from a coaching lens, and both of these pieces of support blend together. They
Totally.
really are interwoven because you can use both tools to
Yes.
move you forward.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Alana. And for my audience, if you want to reach me, you can find me at www.lzlcoaching.com, or send me an email, lisa@lzlcoaching.com. So until the next time, we are the Divorce Clarity Studio. See you soon.